Oh, you. I just have that in class more.
Okay, so it's noon, so let's go ahead and get started. So, hi all, welcome to the Engineers for Exploration fall info session. So I presume you're all interested in Engineers for Exploration. So let's go ahead and give it a little bit of background on what Engineers for Exploration is. So next slide, please, Dan. Dylan, next slide. Are you on the next slide yet?
Is it showing for you, Nathan?
Hang on, let me see. I still see the info session slide.
Okay, I'm on about the program right now if you just want to continue.
Okay, so Zoom crashed, that's all. All right, so the Engineers for Exploration is a research program. It's a research group at UCSD that is very much student focused. So what we do is we develop we have a bunch of projects throughout the year that are collaborations between UC San Diego and San Diego Zoo, Scripps Institute of Oceanography, as well as a bunch of other institutions. And what the overall objective is we're trying to take technologies that are difficult to access, for example, machine learning, computer vision, drones, and apply them to archaeological and ecological surveys. So helping scientists actually conduct science in the field. So we can see on the screen right now is actually a couple photos of our deployment. So on the left, we actually have a photo from our deployment into the Anza-Borrego mud caves where we're actually doing tunnel mapping. And these technologies were then utilized in Guatemala to help archaeologists. On the right, we have an image of one of our other deployments, and this is in Belize, where we were actually flying drones to map jungle. So, Dylan, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, let me wait for Zoom to update on my thing.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah. Okay, so some of the projects that we have currently running are the Wildlife Telemetry Tracker, Baboon Project, FishSense, Acoustic Species, Burrowing Owl, Sleep Monitoring, Mangrove Monitoring, Smartfin, Reefpin, and Archaeology. So a lot of these projects have been running for several years now and are fairly mature. Some of these aren't as running, but have a lot more areas to explore. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to sort of get involved in projects where you can start from a project that has a lot of foundation, there's a lot of people helping, or get involved in a project that you can contribute and guide the way that project's going to go. So plenty of opportunities here. So without further ado, I think what we'll do is go ahead and get started talking about these projects. So I'll go ahead and start talking about the Sleep Monitoring project, because it's actually one of our newest projects. I'm actually going to ask that the rest of you mute yourselves so that we can hear clearly. So thank you. Okay, so go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so the II project is actually a very new project. We just spun it up over the summer. So this is a collaboration with San Diego Zoo Institute for Conservation Research, which is based out of the safari park. But this project is actually going to be deployed at the San Diego Zoo in Balboa Park, so much closer than a lot of our other collaborations. So basically what's happening is that the San Diego Zoo has a bunch of IIs that it has in its care. And researchers are kind of concerned about the fact that they may have sleep problems. Like humans, maybe you don't get a full night's sleep. They might get up and you might not be in the best of moods during the day. And that can lead to long-term health issues. So we want to kind of understand and study that. Now, unlike humans, right, eyes won't wear wearables. So you can't put a smartwatch in it. You can't put a heart rate monitor in it. So you have to use remote monitoring of some sort. One of our visions for this is to create a multimodal sensor network. So we're going to use cameras, IMUs, microphones, and all sorts of other fun technologies to try and monitor the eyes while they sleep. So John, you can go to the next slide, please. So here's sort of our plan. We already have a bit of hardware spec'd out. And what we're going to try and do is actually bring all this stuff together and deploy it hopefully within the next quarter or two. Then over the next couple of years, we're actually going to bring computer vision, vibration analysis, audio analysis, maybe even machine learning and other digital signal processing techniques to try and understand, are these eyes actually having problems sleeping? What other things can we understand about the eyes using these remote sensing techniques? In terms of deployments, this is going to be a fairly fast-paced project, which is kind of nice in that for a new project. So we already have the first revision of hardware. We're already starting to look at what we're going to purchase and whatnot. And again, as I said, this is going to be a 2-year deployment. So we're going to look at having software revisions and hardware upgrades over the next 2 years as this project continues to go. Next slide. So I guess kind of who we're looking for. So a lot of what we're looking for on this project are people who have a knack for doing software data analysis. So primarily if you're interested in looking at data, developing sensors, or even doing the analysis of data and kind of doing machine learning, that's sort of the aspect that we're looking at. And so you have my email here, and we'll actually go ahead and publish these slides and the recording of this at the end. So I guess actually before we go on a little bit, just sort of things that I would like you guys as students and as people who want to get involved in E4E should keep an eye on. So we're actually going to try to do a little bit of a different tack here this year than we have done in previous years. So what we're going to ask that students do is actually there's a intake form that we'll have linked at the very end of this presentation. And during this presentation, I'd like you guys to kind of think about, kind of what projects that you're really interested in and that you feel like you can really contribute to. We really don't want to have students feel like, oh, I really want to get in this project, but I can't really contribute. We want to actually get you guys in a position where you feel like you actually can contribute. And so there are a bunch of projects where, there may not be, there may be some easier tasks to do, maybe some harder tasks to do. And I would encourage you all to kind of look at these and think, are there tasks that we can actually look at and that I can do and maybe push us a little bit to learn and continue to build on the skill set, as well as leverage existing skill sets that I do have to contribute to these projects. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go to the next project. So that would be Acoustic Species with Jacob.
Hi guys, my name is Jacob Ayers, and I'm the current project lead for the Acoustic Species Identification project. So if we go to the next slide, I have a video project that we produced over the summer that kind of gives you an introduction to it. So Dylan, if you can go ahead and play it. I'm not hearing the audio.
Let me get that for you. Okay, I think that should work.
It is very quiet for me. That's better.
The simplest path towards self-improvement is to listen. Our Our acoustic species identification team out of the Engineers for Exploration lab here at UCSD is collaborating with population sustainability researchers at the Beckman Center for Conservation Research at the San Diego Zoo. Our common goal is to develop and deploy machine learning and digital signal processing technologies that can parse through and extract significant information from terabytes of audio recordings, thus minimizing human labor that is commonly spent labeling and interpreting extensive audio sets collected around the world over long periods of time. By working towards species classification, we plan to leverage our collaborators' statistical models that have monitored the effects of different land use types such as logging or mining on tropical rainforests. We hope to find and push new boundaries within the bioacoustics field that take a holistic approach in improving the foundation of knowledge of the world's natural soundscapes that are begging to be heard.
Okay. So the essence of our project is that we're taking a multidisciplinary approach to trying to parse through and extract meaningful information from audio that was deployed in the Madre de Dios region of the Peruvian Amazon for our San Diego Zoo collaborators that are trying to generate biodiversity statistics to better understand like the state of the species in the area. And so you can kind of see the deployment region on the bottom left photo, once again, in the Peruvian Amazon. And for our immediate goals over the fall, we are focused on trying to write and publish a paper that contrasts the efficacy of pre-trained image classification models on internet data sets in compared to the field data that we had on Peru, because we've seen that very often if we use pre-trained models that may have not been trained on birds, for instance, from the region, it will not be that effective on the region-specific data we're working with. Even in some cases, we're finding that those can be very effective on bird audio from internet data sets that are a lot cleaner than our field data. And so we're just trying to bring attention to this problem and hopefully try to address what I've labeled as the transferability problem. Furthermore, we're looking to be able to kind of use machine learning models in order to train other machine learning models. By that, I mean, if we have a bunch of bird audio that is fairly clean, and what we want to do is go through with a binary bird classifier and try to pull out local scores and use those local scores, kind of seen at the bottom right, to pull out the actual vocalizations of, of like bird chirps and whatnot, and make sure we're training on the bird audio as opposed to kind of the like dead sound where you don't see the peaks. And so that involves like a lot of digital signal processing and curve smoothing and whatnot. And also we're constantly in need of finding more label data, preferably from our 4.3 terabyte unlabeled data set. And so we're kind of working on building a labeling system for that and constantly making improvements to it. Go on to the next slide. So due to the just kind of open-ended nature of this project, there's a lot of different species that we want to try to get biodiversity statistics on and try to generate pipelines that can detect a wide variety of taxonomic classes. So one thing that we are aiming towards, hence the name Acoustic Species Identification, is, well, species classification. So instead of binary classification, that would be like, detect, oh, is there a frog or not, bird or not. In an audio clip, we want to be able to break it down to like, what is the actual like species on like the lowest form of the taxonomic tree. And so, that would be like, oh, parakeet versus crow or something like that. But there's a lot of other species that we haven't really broken into, such as frogs, primates, and bats. And we would love to have people that can a lot of these sub-projects have had ground broken into them, but our focus is has been diverted towards birds. So it'd be great to have people that can carry those batons that we've already started. We're also looking at trying to develop an active learning system that enables us to train models with significantly less amounts of data by just sampling clips to label effectively. So if we go on to the next slide. These are the types of skills that we're looking for in people. we've pretty much exclusively used Python. We did a lot of matplotlib for generating graphs and visualizing data. Librosa for manipulation. We've tested out a bunch of data augmentation techniques that we plan to leverage to make our models more robust and prevent overfitting. And the main two frameworks we've worked with on the machine learning end of things is PyTorch and TensorFlow. It would be great to have people that are very well versed in these packages that can better interpret some of the pre-trained models we've been working with. And then most of like the spectrograms and such and reading in WAV files is done with SciPy. We have weekly meetings with our collaborators. So it is, you can have a lot of technical skills, but this is a good kind of space to practice your presentation skills, because very commonly we're presenting data to either the E4E org as a whole or to our zoo collaborators. And since due to the open-ended nature of this project, leadership is very important, because I can show you kind of where we've tread ground in something like bat classification, but it's kind of up to you to take it to the next step. And so that'll require you to pick up a lot of skills necessary for the field, read a lot of papers, and if you want to get involved in those sub projects as opposed to like our main projects, it is more self-deterministic, as opposed to if you wanted to work on bird classification, where I could give you more discrete goals that are smaller scale. Next slide. And so I think this project is, if you're interested in any of these things, you should definitely give us some consideration. A lot of our work is deeply rooted in paths that's been tread by the life sciences field, and so it helps to have your machine learning and digital signal processing kind of be founded in a basis of life science understanding. It helps you better understand what we're working with. Machine learning, we've tried a lot of different techniques under the umbrella of the machine learning field on this project. Digital signal processing has been great because it helps us pick out data in more empirical manners. And yeah, so I think with that, I'll pass it off on to the next project.
Hello, my name's Chris, and I'm the project lead. The project lead for the Baboons on the Move project. So, if you could advance the next slide, I've got a short YouTube video that I'd like to display, and as we're queuing that up, just to give like a super brief overview of the project. Our project is one that uses computer vision and to analyze drone footage to try to track large groups of baboons.
On the picturesque Laikipia Plateau of Kenya, Dr. Shirley Strum has been studying several troops of baboons for nearly 5 decades. One of her aims is to better understand their collective decision-making. With troop sizes varying between 20 to 150 individuals, it can be difficult to keep track of both group level and individual movement trajectories, particularly since the baboons prefer rough terrain and large boulders as sleeping sites. To improve her logistical ability to track multiple animals, she reached out to the team at Engineers for Exploration, where we set to work using drone footage to get a bird's eye view of the entire troop, unlocking information about baboon behavior that has not previously been available.
So I know that cut off kind of short. The full video is about 2.5 minutes and gets into some details I don't think are terribly relevant to this conversation. After I finish talking about it, I'll post the full link in the chat so that you all have access to it. So so kind of a little bit more motivation behind this project. So as referenced in the video, our collaborators are Dr. Shirley Strum of UCSD. She spends a lot of time out in a couple spends a lot of time out with this troop, observing them across a number of different sleeping sites, and currently uses a group of people on the ground with clipboards to be able to monitor these baboons. Unfortunately, it's difficult for her to monitor the entire troop since there's about 150 animals in these troops. So she can't really see when a collective decision is made. And for those of you asking, well, why might we be interested in this? Well, it might be necessary for conservation efforts. It might be useful to kind of inform new technologies. Think about stuff like swarm robotics might all benefit from knowledge of how animals make collective decisions. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So just a quick touch. We do have a publication under our belt. There are other, as do other projects. Within the next quarter or two, where our goal is to try to prep another paper for publication. Just like with the other projects, that is an opportunity you can have by joining our project. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So kind of our fall 2020 goals is we're kind of in this process of going through and making some like process improvements to how we kind of run our project. And that so for those of you who are familiar with like buzzwords like agile, we're kind of looking at implementing some of those, but not the entire thing, to improve our project. So that's kind of what the first bullet point is. But our main technological focus this quarter is on Bayesian filtering. So we currently have our current algorithms capable of picking out motion from the drone footage, and we need some way to kind of smooth that motion, and Bayesian filters are a good way to do that. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So kind of the skills that we'd like people coming in to have are Python. Most of our codes are in Python, Vision, but for the most part with Vision, we do lots of linear algebra. So I'd actually rather emphasize the linear algebra portion of this and less so the Vision portion of this. I'm saying with the Bayesian filtering, I'd like to emphasize statistics over the actual filtering itself, and then we're also starting to dip our toes into deep learning. In order to do this Bayesian filtering, you have to have some notion of how these animals move. So we're using PyTorch to try to model that movement. I think that's my last slide. Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
All right, so next up, we have FishSense. My name is Peter Tuller. I've been, this is a relatively new project. We very first week of it was probably in May. So we've had the summer to sort of get our bearings with it, and now excited for all of you who want to join and see the next phase of this. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide for the overview. Basically, this project seeks to improve data collection of fish populations. This is for our interests at this current moment, that's volume and length of fish. You can get sort of an estimate for the general health of a population, which of course ties into the overall ecology of the areas that the fish inhabit. Typically, this is done and has been done with catch and release methods, which are obviously invasive to the population, don't always necessarily paint the full picture as well. You can't actually see the fish in their habitats, how they interact with each other in their schools. So there's been a push in recent years to accomplish this with underwater imaging. You can see in the top right picture here, this is what they try to do now using stereo vision, 2 GoPros on a stick, essentially, to passively collect data, images of the fish, and then use post-processing after the fact to determine the length of the fish and other metrics as well. In practice, this has been somewhat difficult for them. It's been they found it to be inaccurate in some cases in how the fish are oriented. And also it's generally bulky. They're looking to really make this accessible for any diver to use so they can gather as much data as possible. So that's where we theoretically come in. We've been investigating the Intel RealSense 3D camera, which you see on the bottom right here. Those are a couple on the RealSense product line. Use regular color imaging, but then also uses imaging in the infrared spectrum to obtain a depth image. So we aren't having to take 2 image streams and compare them to get depth. We can actually actively measure depth, and you can see a example return event on the bottom left. This is from a test we did within the last week, where we put one of the RealSense cameras. You can see there's someone holding a target there, and we can get depth information directly from that image. This is all still pretty recent for most of the summer, since we've been distanced and without access to facilities. We've been doing our testing in fish tanks. But now, as the project's getting going, we're going more into open water, really trying to get a sense of what we can accomplish when this will eventually be put into the ocean. And so far, we've been really pleased with the results. Our range has been a lot farther than we anticipated. And now it's just a matter of making it better, optimizing our results, and also making it more accessible for potential citizen science divers to use and actually start collecting data in the field. So if we could go to the next slide to talk about goals for this quarter specifically. We already have a team that we're working with the Triton RoboSub team, which is trying to waterproof these cameras and put them underwater. So that's not going to be our focus for the E4E side of things. Our focus for this quarter is going to be the software side of things, the processing side of things, where you can take those images and actually get accurate, reliable measurements quickly. So to start with, we're going to be looking at how best we can filter these depth images, not just the depth images that are easy to obtain in our test tanks, but also what if we start to introduce contaminants into the water. If the water is muddy, the ocean isn't always going to be perfectly clear. What if there's multiple fish? How do we handle reflections? What angles give us the best images, etc. So really trying to optimize our the raw image gathering part of it. Verifying length and volume measurements, obviously that's going to be important. We want to show that we have accurate results. And then overall designing software for the prototype imaging platform, which we're going to start design talks on in the coming weeks. And then software for post-processing the image data. After collecting everything, if a fisheries scientist brings it back into the lab, how can they get the information that they need quickly? You can imagine if we have citizen science divers, we're going to be getting terabytes upon terabytes of images from all over the globe. So how can we best process that quickly? This quarter will probably just be designing framework for it. Implementation will probably come later. This is, again, a pretty new project, so it's just kind of setting us up well for success in the future. So this would be a great project if you want to get in on the ground floor of it and design something cool for underwater imaging. If we go to the next slide, just to wrap it up, skills needed. Essentially just being comfortable programming with C++ or Python. That's what we use to integrate with the cameras. That's what we use to collect the data and potentially, and is almost certainly going to be what we use to process the data as well. If you have experience with point clouds, that's going to be a plus, most definitely, since that's primarily what we're going to be working with. But overall, just if you're intrigued by the challenges and possibilities in marine technology, this is definitely a great project to get involved in. I think marine technology is super fascinating field. It's difficult in a lot of ways, but to me, that just says that there's more opportunity to discover great things. So with that, that's all I have. My contact information will be on the last slide at the end of the presentation. So feel free to reach out.
Right. Hi, my name's Mia Lucio. I'm with the radio telemetry project team. To get us started, I have an intro video ready on the next slide. That sort of explains our ecology. Tracking animals is a significantly useful method to aid in the monitoring and management of species. Traditional methods of tracking usually involve tracking a radio transmitter attached to a target animal and using a radio antenna to detect that transmitter. The way that this method usually works is that you take a radio antenna, like the one pictured here, and you point it in different directions until you get a signal. When a signal is detected, you know that an animal is located somewhere in that direction, so you proceed in that direction until the animal is found. This can make tracking animals over uneven terrain an arduous task, as the animal may be located in a direction with large plants or other physical obstacles. In 2013, the San Diego Zoo Institute for Conservation Research teamed up with UC San Diego's Engineers for Exploration to solve this problem by developing an intuitive and reliable drone-based system to track radio transmitters. Sorry, I was muted. Okay, so like the video said, the goal of our project is to create a drone-based system that tracks animal locations using radio telemetry to make it easier for scientists to track animals. So the way that our current system works is that the drone flies over a specified area where animals are expected to be in a sort of lawnmower pattern. Over here on the right, you can see a screenshot of what our current UI looks like after a flight has been run. You can see that it's gone over this area in rows. And you can see the vehicle's final landing location at the top, as well as the estimate point that it calculated using data that it picks up during the flight. So over the summer for this project, we primarily focus on developing software. And for this quarter, our plan is mainly to continue this work and finish up missing or incomplete software components of the system. Next slide. So on the right is the diagram of the different components of our system, and the color-filled pieces are these software components that we're focusing on. In red are the components that are missing, incomplete, or need to be integrated. So our goals for this quarter are to finish up the ground control UI, which you saw in the first slide. It's mostly completed, but still missing a few important features. We also want to finish up the UI board, which is the part of the electronics that are going to be on the drone that are responsible for things like the GPS, the compass, and displaying statuses of system components. And we also need to develop the system manager software, which is responsible for starting up our application software and communication with the UI board. So next slide. So I encourage anyone who wants to develop technical skills or who wishes to contribute to animal conservation efforts to join us. In terms of technical skills, we want people who have experience programming in Python or C, and being familiar with UI development would be a plus. And I'll pass it on to feel free to contact me. My email will be on the slide at the end as well. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, I'm Giovanni. I'm the project lead for Maya Archaeology. I'm a computer science senior transfer. And so next slide. When I joined the project, in the past, what we've done is we've gone to Guatemala multiple times to assist archaeologists in terrestrial and aerial mapping of structures and excavations with LiDAR and structure for motion. We've also experimented with creating low-cost handheld scanning systems, trying out different combinations of SLAM algorithms and equipment to see in which combination gives the most accuracy. And then when I joined and going forward, with the data that we have lots of point clouds. I actually joined from UCSD's VR club, Triton XR. And so going onward, some of the problems we're interested in is how can game engines be leveraged with XR technologies in ways that are relevant to archaeology and cultural heritage preservation. And so some things we've done is we have in the lab, we have a HTC Vive and Oculus Quest. And so we've been working on an Oculus Quest exhibition prototype to have in museums across Guatemala, in Guatemala City. So that way to bring more access to these remote areas, because we do have scans of these excavations that are in the middle of the jungle and very hard to get to. And also, can these game engines and XR technologies, can we create tools, new tools for archaeologists to use? For an example, there's interest in using like Unreal Engine to create a point cloud or a model viewer that we can use to view orthographic projections and for illustrations and publications that archaeologists might have. And again, like what are the workflows that can take this like data point clouds and transform them into accurate environments? And so kind of the process involved in that involves like scanning and even traditional modeling, sculpting that you would do for video games and movies, and representing these cities parametrically and importing that into things like Unreal or Unity, as well as pulling data from GIS and BIM and trying to integrate that to give information about the greater context of what the location you're seeing. And also, a lot of people have interest in how can we automate this process and create digital twins efficiently with high quality. And just overall, in what ways can we collect data and visualize it, but also how can we share it? Do you have to download and install like a game, or can we just connect you to a website? Do you have to be somewhere? Next slide. And so this is kind of the roadmap going forward. This is the kind of work I do, and what we've done in this project is we have these point clouds of these noisy point clouds in the middle of the jungle. This is the outside of one structure, as well as the inside you can see. And so, for example, this is just a point cloud that needs to be cleaned up and given a high quality representation to view in VR, AR, or whichever medium. Next slide. And so this is just a quick overview of like my workflow that we've done, getting these point clouds and processing them, as well as meshing them and doing some further processing. To next slide, because they need to be optimized. So this is that overview of like optimizing an asset, something from a point cloud, which is very dense, to something that your graphics card can handle. And so next slide. And so that's like a localized space, right? How can we get the greater context and extrapolate that and actually create an accurate representation of like a landscape, say like 8 squared kilometers? And so we can gather like satellite data or drone data and create like digital elevation models, and then create these quadrants, and then we can stream them in the game, etc. And just so it's a combination of procedurally creating a huge environment that honors the actual biosphere of the area, and integrating the localized data set into that. Next slide. And that's the roadmap of this quarter is procedurally populating this huge forest, and then also perhaps overlaying GIS data onto that. Next slide. And so since we're basically building a video game, a VR game, AR, a lot of the tools and methods necessary for that are here. 3D modeling, we've all played video games, game programming, interactivity is a big thing, as well as visual effects to as well, and just general devices like AR and VR, Quest, AR Core, and interest in GIS and BIM software packages to integrate that into Unreal Engine. So reach out to me if you're interested. And up next we have Mangrove Monitoring.
Okay, cool. So hi everyone, I'm Dylan Hicks. I am the technical lead with the Mangrove Monitoring project. So essentially what we do is, conservation of mangroves through machine learning and drones. So first off, the question is, what are mangroves? So mangroves are, a type of tree species that live on the coast of tropical areas in over 118 countries. So I think if you've probably ever been to Florida, a lot of the trees that are on the coast are mangroves, and in a lot of tropical areas, those really muddy, wet areas are mangroves. So you guys might be wondering, why are we conserving mangroves? Why don't you do literally any other tree in the world? Well, number one, mangroves are super important compared to other type of trees. So number one is just in terms of their carbon sequestration. So really good at fighting the causes of climate change. So mangroves can absorb almost twice as much carbon dioxide compared to, even the most densest tropical rainforest. So really important for governments who are trying to reduce their carbon footprint. They're super important for them to protect these mangroves. Also, protection from tropical storms. So, as climate change further impacts our planet, tropical storms get worse. So mangroves are needed even more to act as, natural storm breaks to prevent, damaged communities and, even deaths. And of course, fisheries. So thousands of fish species actually have their nursing habitats in mangroves, and they provide, essentially the food for a lot of fish species to live. So a lot of fishermen in these tropical areas, the fish that they actually catch are dependent on these mangroves for their food. And because of all these reasons, of course, they have a really high value. So worth up to 57,000 per hectare. So incredibly valuable for these local governments to save, not only for the betterment of the planet, but also for the betterment of their budgets. If they didn't do these things, then they would have to build storm breaks and figure out ways to feed these fish and figure out how to make their Paris Accord agreements. So yeah, they're really important to these countries. So what we do in particular, so number one is data acquisition. So of course we need data on these mangroves to help protect them. So currently we use drones to take images of our mangrove ecosystem. So this really allows us to do things with our machine learning workflows to essentially quantify these areas. So I think you can see in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that that we actually have a drone imagery. I was actually there when we took that, and we actually fly out to these areas. This was in Baja California, to survey these ecosystems to get data. And we're also incorporating different types of data as well. Also, one thing that we've done a lot is machine learning. So we develop machine learning models to be able to classify these mangrove ecosystems way quicker than what you can do it by hand. So labeling these, like trying to see what species a certain area of mangrove is or how big it is incredibly hard because mangroves look similar to other trees. So you need other forms of data, and also using machine learning models, which can oftentimes be smarter than what you yourself can do on your own and way faster. And lastly, since a lot of our workflows are so defined right now, actually packaging up what we do right now into tools for scientists to make it easier for them to conserve mangroves. So for example, they don't have to learn how to use deep learning packages or all the different workflows that we do. They can just load up the software to get classifications like you can see in the bottom right. So yeah. So one thing that, one project that we mainly need help for right now is actually ML Paint. So just a quick overview on ML Paint. It's kind of this assistive labeling tool that uses machine learning to label these mangrove ecosystems a lot quicker. So essentially, as you label, you can essentially brush on an area, and it uses that as suggestions or to make suggestions for future classifications. And this really greatly increases the speed of our labeling. And of course, we need to label these mangroves to generate machine learning models on them. So we want to improve this a lot further. So this quarter, we're actually gearing up for a publication on ML Paint, and we actually need a little bit more features in the application to make it easy to run the experiments. So what we want to do is we actually want to find, we want to quantify how much quicker does ML Paint enable a labeler to label mangroves, and how does it affect our machine learning models? So we need a bit more features on that. So of course, if you have experience in Java, so application development, software engineer with Java, you'd be perfect for this. And also exposure to ML. A lot of the machine learning models on this are already developed, but of course, having exposure to that will make it easy to kind of grasp what's going on in the project. And also, one additional thing that we want to do is, kind of improve our image classification tool. So we've packaged all of our machine learning models into a website that makes it easy for our collaborators, such as the ones in Jamaica and Mexico, to be able to use. They don't have to learn how to use TensorFlow or even Python to run these. They just open the website and upload images. So of course, things that are needed in this is Python web dev. So if you know Flask and Dash, that would be amazing. We use Flask as the actual backend for this, and Dash to actually visualize these areas. And also, typical web dev stuff like HTML and JavaScript are always nice. And also cloud computing. So when we actually do these classifications to display on the website, it actually we have to do this computation somewhere. So if you have any knowledge in Azure or AWS, that would be really applicable to this, since we do all of our computation on Azure. And also for Heroku, we deploy this site to Heroku, and our Heroku site uses the computation in Azure to complete these classifications. So yeah, if you just an overview, if you have any experience in Java software engineering or Python web dev and exposure to machine learning, that would be fantastic. And yeah, feel free to email me right here. You'll find that email at the end. And also, if you get on our Slack, just message me there. And I think I'll pass it on to Burrowing Owl Classifier.
All right, cool. Thanks, Dylan. Yeah, so we're the Burrowing Owl Classifier. You can move on to the next slide. Just quick introduction. Yeah, I'm Justin, fourth year computer engineer major. I love bulldogs. I got one right there. And then another lead for this project is Nick.
My name is Nick. I'm a second year transfer electrical engineering student. Unlike Justin, I love pit bulls. Unfortunately, my dog couldn't cooperate for a picture, so that's why I don't have a picture of him, unfortunately. But we do have our contact emails right here. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. Next slide. We are looking at burrowing owls. Burrowing owls have seen a decline in their population, and overall have spiked the interest of researchers to look into them, to assist them. And we are working with San Diego Zoo, and we are working with researchers there to help automate the classification of their images from camera trap images. For them, the researchers, to help the burrowing owls, they need to get a better understanding of their ecology. So they do so by setting up a bunch of camera traps that basically are cameras that are put up in select locations, so they could collect data from these owls. And right now they are manually going through all these images, detailing them when it comes to like what animals are in it, what's happening in the image to behavior. And we want to help them automate this. And we do this by creating a pipeline for this. And I'll show you over to Justin for the next slide.
Yeah, so basically for this pipeline, like Nick said, we deploy a camera trap into the field, and then it's set off by these motion sensors, and then you can just keep clicking till the whole pipeline shows up. Yeah, and then given those camera trap imagery, we can just detect which of these images has something interesting to us. So in this case, like if there's an animal or not in them, and we use this open source software by Microsoft called Mega Detector, where it just detects these animals or objects or whatever's in the image that's interesting. And then what we do is we take whatever through a bonding box on it and crop it down. And then once we crop it down, we classify the images in their smaller form because it's a little easier to classify an image when you're like more focused on what you're mainly trying to look at. So that's why we crop it like that. And then when we classify these cropped images, and we take these classifications and analyze them on the CSV sheet. And then you can move on to the next slide.
So what we are trying to do this quarter, we're aiming to do is to work on our binary classifier and be able to expand onto more information that would be helpful for us. So one area we're looking at is counting. So from our binary classifier, we're able to detect which images have owls in it. So we want to be able to take these images and be able to get a better, to quantify the number of owls within these images. So counting the owls, we are looking to either count by detection using the mega detector and critiquing the specs on it, or counting by linear regression, training a model to make accurate predictions on how the owls are in the image. So those are two different methods we're currently looking at. And the other portion of the project that we're looking at is to expand on our classifier. So we have a binary classifier that can basically tell you, is it an owl or is it not? So we want to expand on it, maybe look into other categories of other animals, or maybe get more specific as we go down the line. But we want to be able to create another category for other animals. So we could be able to look into, oh, is it a prey or a predator of some sort? And we are looking into doing that by either expanding on our model, so it creates a new category, or creating another binary model to separate this other category into empty images or other animals. Next slide.
Yeah, and just skills we need in order to complete these tasks. It would be very helpful if we can get some machine learning background, because we're making all these models. So like understanding deep learning and computer vision would be very helpful. And then some sort of like Python experience, because like a lot of the code we have right now is just all Python scripts, especially the pipelines. So understanding Python to some degree would be very helpful. And then yeah, just some dedication and passion, because like this is a very like there's a lot to this project, and like just being able to put in the work and then like wanting to learn these skills, like even if you are like not have strong Python experience, but you want to keep building it up, we're a good project for you to do that. And if you just took a machine learning class but have no like real have really used that into actually making a model or something, we're a perfect project for that too. So yeah, and that's just basically our project, and our contact information will be at the end as well. And next is Smartfin with Ben and Brooke.
Hi, our project is the Smartfin. My name is Brooke. I'm an electrical engineering major and a senior.
Hi, my name is...
Oh, sorry, but a little about me. I'm an outdoorsy person, and I recently got into surfing. Next slide, please.
Hi, my name is Ben Werb. I'm a junior, and I'm an oceanic and atmospheric sciences major. I recently got scuba certified, so I love being in the ocean, learning about the ocean. Next slide. All right, so this is a quick video to sort of show what our project's about. Yeah, and then I'll go a little more into it.
Scripps Institution of Oceanography, there is only one nearshore buoy providing data for miles of shore. This is a problem because it assumes that in the area that the buoy covers, all the parameters are the same. Imagine if in addition to this single buoy, each of these surfers below could become virtual buoys, recording important information about ocean health. Enter the Smartfin, a surfboard fin with a range of sensors that allow it to measure sea surface temperature, location, and other critical wave statistics. After the launch of the first generation Smartfin in 2017, we have collected thousands of data points across the world from hundreds of surf sessions. This project uses extraordinary individuals, known as surfers, to not only conduct research about the changing oceans, but also to tell a story through science. Smartfin combines the immense grassroots power of the people with the unstoppable force of the scientific process, taking a step in the right direction towards healing our planet.
Next slide, please.
Nice.
On the coast of the Scripps.
So we have several goals for this project this quarter. One of our first priorities is to finish up wrapping up the double integral analysis, which is the method we use to measure wave height. And a second thing we are working on is our RIDE API. So it is a visualization tool to display all the different data we've been working on, like wave height, wave period, wave frequency, and a linear regression model with the seeded buoy mentioned offshore.
Yeah, and then after we finish the double integral analysis, we're looking into a new model called a spectral analysis, which is what current ocean buoys use. And instead of looking at acceleration data and converting that into position, it looks at frequency and energies. And then we're also going to look into a research project where we're comparing the Smartfin data to satellite data. Next slide. Yeah, so just like quickly, what we're looking for the project is just people mainly who are passionate about ocean health and marine technology, as well as environmental issues. And I think like a good way to summarize the project right now is like we have thousands of surf sessions from the Smartfin, and we're sort of just looking for people who are interested in analyzing that data and want to find something meaningful to extract from it.
And then of course, like skills that are a plus is like Python and coding experience, because with all the code and data we're looking at, we're mainly working with Python and Jupyter Notebook. Another thing is web development. So that kind of goes towards the RIDE API we're working on. And lastly is data visualization, because I think that's very important when researchers or scientists look at these graphs and have to determine what it is, as well as surfers and regular people.
And then next slide. Cool. So I can send this link in the chat as well, but this is just like a longer video of the one that we just showed you that showed what we did over the summer. And it's pretty cool. It has a lot of useful information. So yeah, thank you.
All right, hello, hi everyone. I'm Narek and I'm the project lead for Reefpin. Next slide. Thank you. The Reefpin is a collaboration with Scripps to provide support for the 100 Island Challenge, which is a global collaborative effort based at Scripps. Their mission is in coral reef conservation, and they use a really neat approach to digitally archive coral reefs so they can be monitored over time. Coral reefs are extremely important to marine ecosystems, as even though they take up less than 0.1% of the Earth's surface, they harbor at least 25% of the biodiversity in the ocean. So the end goal for them is to provide solutions to coral reef decline administratively and experimentally. Next slide. So here you can see just a brief clip that shows one of their many highly detailed 3D models that was created by diving over these sites for hours with their specialized diving rigs. You can see the incredible detail that's in these 3D models. It's really stunning stuff. But yeah, next slide. So our task on the Reefpin project is to develop an alternative to dive computers for the 100 Island project that's more suited to their use case. What we're doing is taking the hydrobarometer out of a dive computer and pairing it with a magnetic compass and accelerometer, then putting it into a larger form factor with a screen that's much easier to read. This screen measures at around 15 centimeters across, which is a major improvement from dive computers, which provide only about 3 centimeters across. One of the biggest challenges in a device like this is waterproofing. And that's why the Reefpin integrates wireless technologies for charging and data retrieval, creating a completely sealed device that won't corrode in the harsh marine conditions. Next slide. And yeah, so we're recruiting for this project right now. And so to be able to ship all these really neat features, we need, at the moment, we need really experienced electrical engineers. As an electrical engineer on this project, there's lots of interesting and challenging work to be done. And this includes things like sourcing components, which I know it sounds a little boring, but it gets pretty interesting after a couple hours. Designing circuits, PCB layout, and lots of firmware development yet to come. My goal as project lead is to give you clear requirements and guidelines to assist with different aspects of the project, and to provide a really interesting way for you to kind of flex your engineering muscle, as corny as that is. Next slide. And yeah, if you're interested in this project, which is a very electrical engineering intense project, just shoot me an email or find me on the Slack. Thank you.
Okay, so can you all hear me? I just want to make sure that they can hear me.
I can hear you.
So
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So those are almost all of our projects that we have. So I like that you all are asking a bunch of questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to make sure those are all answered. But in terms of like how you get started, well, so if you look on the current slide, there's 2 links. So you can find, if you forget, if you need something just memorized right now, look at the first link. That's our welcome page at E4E.ucsd.edu. And if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a link to the intake form. And so what we ask you to do is please, if you're interested in getting involved with E4E, please fill out that intake form. And what basically that is you kind of telling us what you're interested in, what sort of skills you want to, what skills you have, and what you want to get involved in. If you actually have access to this presentation, you can go ahead and click on the second link as well, and that will take you directly to that form. If someone wants to actually just type that straight into the chat, you certainly can, just to help everyone else out. And what will happen is once you fill out that form and submit it, we'll go ahead and review it, and then in a day or two, we'll go ahead and reach out to you all and start a conversation about kind of how to get involved with that particular project, as well as reaching out and getting you started. So go ahead and go on to the next slide, Dylan. So this is actually a list of almost all of our emails. So Chris, Justin, and Nick, if you all can throw your emails into somewhere in the chat or something, we can update it on the slides afterwards as well. So if you want to reach out directly to the project leads to ask more specific questions, you certainly can. But what we can also do right now is actually open up to questions. We'll also do, so go ahead, if you go to the next slide as well, Dylan, that should be all of the staff that work. Yes, we will go ahead and fix that as well. So what we'll go ahead and do right now is, let me go. So if people have any questions, you can go ahead and either try and type them into the chat, or go ahead and actually, yeah, so go ahead, you guys type them in the chat, and I'll go ahead and try and answer these. If someone has any pressing questions, or they can go ahead and, Dylan, if you want to moderate people using the raise hand function on Zoom, and we can try and answer any questions that people have.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yep, go ahead.
Right. So I know you guys are recruiting, and this is like full term recruiting, but right now I have another lab that I have to do for at least 2 or 3 quarters. So is it possible that that are drying, like after the spring quarter or so?
Yeah. So in that particular case, what I would say is go ahead, fill out the intake form. There's a spot where you can tell us if there's any particular issues that you need to bring up with us. Go ahead and just make sure you tell us in there. You're going to be busy for the next 2 quarters, but want to get involved in spring, and we'll work with you on that. Right now, it's still up a little bit of flux on how we want to proceed with that, but it'll either be we'll onboard you in spring or we'll onboard you in fall. So that's something that's up for discussion at this point, and so we can just deal with it on a case-by-case basis.
Got it. What about the summer STRIP, the summer internship program?
So there are 2 programs that we run over the summer. We'll probably might be adding a 3rd. Basically, I don't know if Kurt or Ryan wants to pop in because I see Kurt just jumped in. Basically, so there's 3 programs. So there's the RAU summer program, which is an NSF-funded program, which has its own application that we will be opening up probably in winter. There's a summer research internship program, which is sponsored by UC San Diego. That will be its own application that will probably again open up sometime in winter, and then we are considering running our own summer research opportunities as well, and those details will be kind of laid out sometime later this year. I think probably similar time frame, so winter.
Cool. That's awesome.
Okay, so I'm kind of getting caught up with these. So I saw one question in the chat, what's the due date for submitting the form? We would recommend, I would say, let's try and aim for you all to have that form submitted by end of next week. The earlier is the better, because that will give you more opportunities to get involved sooner. Because the end of next week will be end of week 4, 5, stuff like that. So it's not ideal. But the sooner you can get it in, the better. And we'll probably close it out end of next week. Are there any other questions? Okay. So if not, I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead. We'll have our project leads and staff hang out for a little bit. But that's all we have. Feel free to hang on and ask us more questions. Remember to fill out that intake form by as soon as possible, preferably latest by end of next week. And if you have any project-specific questions, feel free to reach out to the project leads and ask whatever questions you have. So thanks.